adventure, sports, outdoors. With host Harry Canterbury.
There I was, back in the wild again, and I felt right at home where I belong. I had that feeling coming over me again, just like it happened so many times before. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dave Barth with Adventure Sports Outdoors. I'm in for Harry Canterbury today, and today we have a special show. We have a guest, Terry Zingenbein. He's going to talk about his service in Vietnam, and then we're going to talk about values and weapons used by the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese and the Americans. Stay tuned for a great show.
Adventure Sports Outdoors is brought to you in part by Corsall Lumber, manufacturers of quality hardwood products, buyers of standing timber in Smithfield. Central Pool Supply, everything from pools to pool tables and much more in Peoria on West Pioneer Parkway. Kelleher's Irish Pub and Eatery, located on Peoria's riverfront, open 11 a.m. daily. Eastport Marina, one of the only marinas in its class between Chicago and St. Louis, on Mariners Way in East Peoria. Goodwill, supporting our veterans with job placement assistance, health, housing, and resource referrals. And the General Wayne A. Downing Home for Veterans, all because you shop and donate. And by Lori Feld of Allstate Insurance at their new East Peoria location, 411 East Washington Street, next to the U.S. Post Office, on the corner at the bottom of Springfield Road Hill. Our thanks to all of these sponsors.
I'm Dave Barth with Adventure Sports Outdoors, in for Harry Canterbury. And we do have a special show. We have a special guest, Terry Zingenbein. He's going to talk about his service in Vietnam. Then we're going to talk about some of the weapons used in Vietnam by the North and the South Vietnamese. What company were you with in Vietnam, Terry?
I was with the November Company Rangers, attached to the 173rd Airborne. I was there in 1970 and 71. I was there until they pulled our whole unit out.
And what kind of weapons did you carry in Vietnam, Terry?
Well, I personally carried a CAR-15. We only had just a few of them issued to our company. I was fortunate enough to get one. And it basically looked like this gun, only the barrel was considerably shorter. I had one 30-round magazine that was made down in the Ville, they call it, the village. And the rest were all the 20-rounders that we only loaded 18 in for fear of having magazine malfunctions.
Mm-hmm. And then you also carried Thompson at one time, and what else did you have?
Yes, I was able to trade with a buddy of mine who actually is from Pekin as well. I traded a stereo system for a Thompson and a grease gun. And never really carried him out in the bush too much because I didn't have very many magazines for him, but I did possess them for a while anyway.
And this is a rifle similar to what Terry carried, only a semi-auto, which you can't own a full auto. It has a 16-inch barrel, it has all the early features, probably made in the early 70s, and like most firearms and most antiques, the older they are, the more they're worth. This is in the probably $2,000 range, where you can buy a brand new AR-15 for $700 to $1,000 for most of them. Most soldiers in Vietnam were issued this rifle. This is an even earlier version than that one. It has no forward assist, an A1 sight, the stock is different. It's got a triangular handguard and a pencil barrel and a three-prong flash hider. This was made probably around 1970. It's in the $2,000 range. And tell us why they did away with these three-prong flash hiders.
Well, it's my understanding, and when I got there, they had the round ones like that was on this one. But back then, it was my understanding they had problems with vines and other material getting caught in the end of them, so they switched them out.
And then the other rifle Terry also had, he had a Thompson machine gun. This is the semi-auto version. It's got the 16-inch barrel. Back then, they were all 10-inch. and it shot 45 ACP, used a 20 or 30 round magazine, or you could even get a drum for it that held 50. These sell new for in the $1,500 range. Then we have the primary handgun that was used in Vietnam. They were all leftover 1911s from World War II. They quit making these in 1945, and it's 45 ACP, 7-round magazine. This particular one is made by Colt, and the value on these, again, it's all condition and originality, is probably around $2,000 or better. Even the holster and the web gear has value. You're looking at $50 to $100 for a complete set of holsters. The primary rifle issued to the South Vietnamese was the M1 carbine. They quit making these in 1945. They had lots of them left over, and they would update them with bayonet lugs and other features, and issued a lot of these to the South Vietnamese. You see these in the war movies all the time.
I think primarily, Dave, it was early in the war that they were issued those because by the time I got there, they were all using M16s.
Oh, were they really? Yeah. Also, early in the war, they issued M1 Garands. They quit making these in the early 50s, and it was an 8-shot 30-06. Fine rifle, but 9.5 pounds. They were pretty heavy. Value-wise, $1,000 to $2,000 on the Garands. And then the M1A is the civilian version of the military M14, which the Marines were issued these way into the 60s before they went to the M16. It's 308, it's a 20-round magazine. You can buy these new for $1,500 or better, depending on the features. A rifle you don't normally see a whole lot is an M1 carbine with a night vision scope. And these scopes were developed in the 50s. They issued them early in the Vietnam War. It's one of the very first night vision scopes. It's a 30 caliber bullet, and it had a 15-round magazine.
Our Rangers operated in 6-man teams out in the mountains, and we'd be out for a week to 10 days. And when we were out on occasion, they did issue us a night vision scope, but what Dave's got his hand on there is what it looked like, and it was not mounted to any kind of a weapon. It was in a case, and they were always worried about us losing it or it getting damaged. But when I remember looking through it, it had a really green field to it, and you could see movement and so forth, but it was very, very, just early stages of night vision.
Okay, Terry, when you were in the jungle, what was the primary weapon you ran across that the North Vietnamese were carrying?
Well, the one we saw the most, obviously, was the AK-47. It was the one that the VC, the Viet Cong, and the NVA both carried. Occasionally, we would run across an SKS, and any one of these, you could see them, the carbines, you could see them once in a while. We'd run across those, as well as the mortars and so forth. Our job was considered to be the eyes and ears of the commanding general of the 173rd. We would go out in missions, like I said but earlier, be for a week to 10 days, and we would go out and try to locate enemy troops as best we could, and then report it, and then the line companies would come in and deal with them. But all of these, you'd see a lot of surplus World War II stuff. They just seemed to, that's what was available to them at the time.
Now, if you captured any of these weapons that were legal in the U.S., could you keep them?
The SKSs and the old pistols and so forth like that, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is an AK-47. The semi-automatic version, of course, has a 30-round magazine. They make these from parts kits, and now lately they've been making them here in the U.S. So you can buy a U.S.-made AK-47, and they run in the $800 to $1,000 range for most of them. The other rifle Terry was talking about is an SKS, and they have these by the hundreds of thousands. This is an actual bringback, and you've got to watch and not get fooled by a bringback that's been modified from a recently imported one. The early rifles that were brought back from Vietnam had a serial number, and that was basically all the markings. If there's import marks or other marks on the dust cover, it's probably been a modified rifle. Bring back a standard SKS is worth in the $500, maybe $600 range. A bringback SKS is worth about $800 or better. If you have documentation, which they're called capture papers, and it'll describe where you recovered the gun, and it was usually signed by the commanding officer that you're legal to have this rifle and can take it back, that'll jump the price another $400 or $500. This particular rifle was captured by the engineering battalion in 1969, and they put the plaque on at that time. Other rifles include a M38, and this is a short version of the standard rifle. This was made in 1936, and it has the original stock. A lot of these were converted and they put M44 stocks, but again, the originality, that's the original stock, and you're looking at a rifle in the $500, $600 range. This is the same rifle in an M44, side folding bayonet and laminated stock. Again, you're in the $400 or $500 range on this rifle. But if you get a capture rifle, which is what this M44 is, and most capture guns in Vietnam look like this: dark stock, very little finish. It shows a lot of wear near the muzzle where they put them over the shoulder. The Vietnamese that own this rifle cut the bayonet off, made it lighter, less, to tangle in the brush and what have you. And that is a captured bringback M44 rifle. And you're in the probably $800 range for something like that. This is the sniper version. Did you ever run across one of these, Terry?
No, I did not.
And bent bolt handle, side mounted scope, caliber 7.62 by 54. And you see a lot of these in the World War II movies. And this rifle's worth in the $1,000 range. And the standard issue Russian rifle was the 9130, 7.62 by 54, of course no scope. The bayonet was detachable, and it was a 5-shot 7.62 by 54 rifle. And these sell for $400 to $500. You don't see too many handguns coming back from Vietnam, but what you did see a little bit were the Russian Tokarevs. This one's Chinese made, 7.62 by 25 caliber. This one came back with the original holster and the magazine pouch. I bought this off a Navy veteran who swapped a bottle of scotch to a Marine and sold me this pistol. And then the other handgun you occasionally would see over there is a Russian, it's an 1895 Nagant. And they're in the $300 to $400 range on a revolver like that. Some of the other things you see are other collectibles that come back from Vietnam. This particular cash here is MPC. In Vietnam, you cannot have American money. So they would issue this script. These are in the denomination of 10 cents, 5 cents, 25 cents. And it would be good for X amount of time, then all of a sudden they'd shut it down, right, Terry?
Yes, it was pretty wild when that would happen. They would notify us to come to the orderly room, and they would exchange all the MPC that we had in our pockets then for new MPC, and it was to combat the black market out in the villages and so forth. They got pretty upset when that happened, because all the money that they had in their possession at that time would be no good, because it would be exchanged for the new stuff, and none of us knew when that would happen. It just did.
Didn't you say at one time they'd come back and throw it over the fence and
yeah, they're
be really upset?
Pretty upset.
And then you can buy these relatively inexpensive. You go to a coin show or something like that, these are just a few dollars. They're fairly common. And then other bringbacks, here's some NVA helmets. And these were brought back by a helicopter pilot. He landed his helicopter to pick up a general, and this was in the middle of the Tet Offensive, and these were laying on the ground, and brought these back. Here's an example of a good way to keep capture papers with a rifle or a handgun to keep the value up. These are the original capture papers for this SKS rifle. And again, it's signed by the commanding officer, and date, where they got it, and owned by such and such soldier. And then we have flags. And these are relatively inexpensive also. You can buy these for usually less than $100. This one's dated 1968. That's an NBA flag behind Terry there. And then another dated workers flag down at the end.
A lot of this stuff gets traded and so forth. Being a combat soldier and we were out, we were able to pick up a lot of this kind of stuff. But all the support troops, the engineers and whatever, all wanted this kind of stuff. So there was a lot of swapping and trading and so forth that went on.
Probably alcohol was a key item to trade.
Yeah, that wasn't so much a big deal for me at that time. But, you know, it was kind of neat, all the stuff for an 18 and 19-year-old that, you know, had never been away from home, and to go over there on the other side of the world and experience all this, it was pretty overwhelming at times.
And what were your first impressions when you first walked off the plane?
Heat and the smell. I mean, you're standing there at the door and you get a blast of that. I got there in April of 1970 and stayed, had a year, and then I volunteered and stayed for another 6-month extension and ended up only doing 4 when they pulled the whole 173rd out of Vietnam. But they asked us when we first went in to get our 3-day training session at the 173rd where I was. They asked us if we wanted to be in the Rangers and explained it to us, and they talked to us, and they selected a few of us to belong to that. And I'm glad I did it. I really enjoyed that. That's, like I said earlier, that's 6-man teams out in the mountains all alone and doing, sneaking around, doing all kinds of different stuff, and gathering intelligence and trying to capture prisoners, capturing mortars, anything like that we could get. Always was to get it off the trail was a good deal.
Did you lose any guys from your company?
Yes, we lost. I don't know. While the time that I was there, in the 16 months that I was there, I'd say we lost 6 or 8, something
Wow.
like that. So, and several good friends, but you know, you don't think that, you know, young people like that, they think they're immortal. You know, they don't have a lot of thoughts about dying and so forth, as you do when you get older.
So you served your country back then, but then you came home and you served your community.
Yes, I did. I was a Pekin police lieutenant when I retired from a little over 27 years doing that. So about 30, almost 30 years of service altogether. But yeah, people look back at their lives and try to think, you know, was it a good thing, a bad thing? Did they, you know, and I thoroughly enjoyed what I did. Being a policeman was a good thing.
Hey Dave, you were in Vietnam recently. What were your impressions of Vietnam modern day?
Well, 2 years ago, we went to Vietnam, and unlike Terry, it was fairly cool out. The heat was not bad, but my first impression that I was shocked at were all the motorcycles. We were in one town, there was like 6 million people in the area. They had over 3 million motorcycles or mopeds in the town. I mean, it was shocking. You look to the street, to the left and the right, and you wouldn't see dozens, you'd see hundreds, if not thousands. And the first couple of days we were there, it took us probably a half hour to cross the street because we were leery of the motorcycles. And then we started watching the locals. They just walk across the street and let the bikes move around them. So that's what we did. We just stepped out in the street, walked across. You know, I'd seen pictures all these years of all the bicycles. Well, the bicycles are still there, but very, very few. Everybody has a moped or a motorcycle. That was the most shocking thing that I saw there. And the construction along the coast was amazing. They have, every major town had 5 or 6 of the high-rise cranes erecting buildings. And it was just amazing, the construction going on. Now, if you go in the interior, it's probably like it was 100 years ago. And I was on China Beach. Didn't you get a leave on China Beach, Terry?
Yes. One of the policies our company had, if we were able to capture prisoners or mortar tubes or any significant amount of equipment, we were rewarded with a 3-day pass to China Beach, which was kind of neat. And we did that on one time while that policy was in effect. We captured a mortar tube and a prisoner, and engaged the enemy and killed several of them. But anyway, we got rewarded with a 3-day trip to China Beach, which was, pretty cool. Some of the best as well as some of the worst times of my life there. And when you look back and you think of the worst times, I guess they don't appear to be some of the worst times now because so much time has gone by. But when I think of how it has changed my life and made me probably a different person that I would have been had I not went into the military and went overseas. And I think that's probably true of any veteran that's went overseas and served their country. And with combat being involved in it, it adds an extra little kick to it, I guess you would call. And people that went over there, and I admire any person. I have a brother-in-law who was over there, but he was a clerk in a company, so he never was out in the field and never saw combat. But still, they went and they served their country, and I thank them all for that. But combat soldiers, they're a whole different breed. They're just somebody that have been willing to put themselves out there and do things that were, asked of them, but not everybody wanted to do it. Just like not everybody would ever even consider being a policeman. Well, I wouldn't change anything. Been married to my one and only wife, 50 years. We got married at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, actually. So we have 2 children, and one of them is a dispatcher in law enforcement, and the other one is a graduate of West Point. And he was an infantry officer and spent 2 tours in Iraq. And now he works in Alabama for the government, testing weapons and equipment. So,
Thanks to Terry Ziegenbein for showing up. I appreciate it. Great talking about this collector's artifacts. And Dave Barth in for Harry Canterbury with Adventure Sports Outdoors. Hi, I'm Dave Barth with your Sportsman's Tip of the Week. Many guys and gals are cowboys at heart, and everybody likes to shoot at a cowboy rifle. And today we have a few examples of some of those guns. We're going to start first with trapdoor Springfields. This is an officer's model, and it's a current production. Then we have the rifle version, and then we have the cavalry model, which is just identical just about to what Custer had at the Little Bighorn. They shoot a 45-70, they're single shot. You put the hammer on half cock, you open the loading gate, you drop your round in, close it, cock it fully, and you're ready to go. And then we jump up into lever action rifles, and these are Uberti, and they're exact copies of Winchester 73s. This is a saddle ring carbine. This is a deluxe rifle. And then Winchester started making them. They're made by Maruku, but they have the Winchester name, octagon barrel, and this is a full-size rifle. If you want something a little bigger, Winchester comes out with limited edition models. This is a Winchester 1886. Right behind that is the famous Yellow Boy carbine. It's a Winchester 66 copies made by Uberti. This is a copy of a Winchester 92 carbine. It's made by Rossi. This particular rifle is in a 44 Magnum. If you're a big John Wayne fan, they make the John Wayne rifle. This is a 44-40, the large loop, just like what he carried in most of his movies. And here's a nice example of some American-made rifles. These are made in New Jersey by the Henry Company. And if you want to do some long-range cowboy shooting, here's an example of a Sharps rifle. This is made by Shiloh Sharps. It's a 45-110. Probably the most common caliber in a Sharps these days is 45-70. And this particular rifle is a special order. It's got the shotgun butt plate, high-grade wood, factory-installed peep sight, and a extra heavy barrel. I'm Dave Barth with your Sportsman's Tip of the Week. Good shooting.
While in Pekin, Harry's camera crew decided to take some time and enjoy the beauty of a February snow in central Illinois. For many generations, the place to go sledding in Pekin has always been High School Hill.
And we're out here at the High School Hill with the Cooper family. What's your name?
Nick,
Nick. And
Christina, Ollie.
what do you like about sledding?
It's always worth it. I love how fast you can go down. Oh, definitely the velocity and the crashes.
Adventure Sports Outdoors is brought to you in part by Corsall Lumber, manufacturers of quality hardwood products, buyers of standing timber in Smithfield. Central Pool Supply, everything from pools to pool tables and much more in Peoria on West Pioneer Parkway. Kelleher's Irish Pub and Eatery, located on Peoria's riverfront, open 11 a.m. daily. Eastport Marina, one of the only marinas in its class between Chicago and St. Louis, on Mariners Way in East Peoria. Goodwill, supporting our veterans with job placement assistance, health, housing, and resource referrals. And the General Wayne A. Downing Home for Veterans, all because you shop and donate. And by Lori Feld of Allstate Insurance at their new East Peoria location, 411 East Washington Street, next to the U.S. Post Office, on the corner at the bottom of Springfield Road Hill. Our thanks to all of these sponsors.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Adventure Sports Outdoors. I'm Dave Barth, in for Harry Canterbury. Thanks for joining our show, and we'll see you next month.